They've told you to save, to cut expenses, to live below your means. But Machiavelli would laugh at that advice, because the poor man who clings to his few coins is already a prisoner. He's not saving, he's starving. He's starving his potential, his reputation, his influence, and his future. Before we start, hit that subscribe button and comment, "I'm ready to take control," so I know who's serious about building real wealth. Machiavelli understood something that most people never grasp. Money is not meant to be hoarded, it's meant to move. And if you don't control where it moves, someone else will. You see, money is a signal. Every coin you spend whispers something about your power. Every dollar you invest declares your belief in yourself. And every penny you hide reveals your fear. The man who spends with strategy shapes his destiny. The man who saves out of fear dies in silence, wondering why nothing ever changed. That's why Machiavelli would say, if you want to be rich, you must learn how to spend, but not like a fool who buys comfort, like a strategist who buys leverage. Because money in the hands of a thinker becomes a weapon. In the hands of a coward, it becomes a chain. Look around you. The rich don't just make money, they deploy it. They understand that money is a soldier in a silent war called influence. And those who win that war are never the ones hiding in their financial bunkers. The truth is uncomfortable. You cannot escape poverty by saving. You escape it by investing. In visibility, in skill, in positioning. Machiavelli would tell you, power is perception. If you look powerful, you become powerful. The same applies to wealth. If you learn to act like capital flows through you, it will. But here's the catch. Most people spend emotionally, not strategically. They spend to numb their pain, to appear rich, to escape their emptiness, and then they call it self-care. Machiavelli would smirk at that word because he knew emotion is the enemy of power. To him, money is a tool of manipulation, of control. When you spend, you send a message, and every message you send either increases or decreases your authority. Think of this. You buy a course to sharpen your mind. That's an act of power. You buy luxury to impress the weak. That's an act of insecurity. You spend to grow your empire. That's domination. You spend to soothe your ego. That's slavery. Machiavelli would tell you, to rule, you must learn to spend where others hesitate. Because hesitation is the seed of poverty, and boldness, uneven in spending, is the mark of rulers. Now let's dig deeper into the psychology. Why do most people fear spending? Because spending feels like losing control. It exposes your belief in yourself. If you don't believe your investment will return, you won't spend. And that's exactly why you stay stuck. Machiavelli once wrote that fortune favors the bold. But boldness is not about impulse. It's about conviction. The conviction that your decisions create value, that your actions command results, that you, not luck, shape your outcomes. Poor men live by fear of loss. Rich men live by faith in expansion. It's not the amount of money that separates them. It's the psychology of motion. Because money is energy. If it doesn't move, it dies. And when it dies, it takes your opportunities with it. Machiavelli would advise you to treat money as an army. Deploy it to gain territory, skill, network, reputation, status. Withdraw it only when it stops serving the mission. Never hoard it out of fear, because fear is the root of poverty. The peasants of Florence saved every coin. The rulers spent strategically to build armies, buy loyalty, and project strength. Who do you think history remembers? Here's the paradox. The more afraid you are to spend, the more expensive your fear becomes. Because fear has a cost. The cost of missed opportunities, unlearned skills, unseen chances. Machiavelli knew that power doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who buy time, buy access, and buy leverage before others even understand the game. But the masses still believe money is security. They think that by saving, they're protecting themselves. Yet Machiavelli would say, security is an illusion. Influence is the only protection, and influence cannot be saved. It must be bought, built, and maintained. Ask yourself, how much money have you spent to grow your influence? To build a reputation that commands attention? Or do you still think the world will reward you just because you work hard? Hard work without visibility is slavery. You cannot rise if no one knows you exist. And you cannot be known if you never invest in being seen. That's why Machiavelli's students were never afraid to invest in image. They understood that perception shapes destiny. They knew that when you spend to elevate your appearance, your voice, your brand, you are not wasting money. You are building authority. That's why Machiavelli's students were never afraid to invest in image. They understood that perception shapes destiny. They knew that when you spend to elevate your appearance, your voice, your brand, you are not wasting money. You are building authority. And authority always attracts wealth. The problem with most people is that they confuse frugality with intelligence. They think being cheap makes them smart, but cheapness is just fear wearing a mask of wisdom. You can't shrink your way to abundance. You can't hide your way to recognition. And you can't save your way to power. Machiavelli would tell you, your money must serve your ambition, not your anxiety. If you spend to reinforce your ambition, you rise. If you spend to relieve your anxiety, you sink. Look at how the truly wealthy behave. They spend money on things that multiply their power. Mentors, connections, branding, knowledge, systems. They're not reckless. They're strategic predators in the marketplace. Every purchase is an investment in leverage. They don't see a mentor as an expense. They see him as an acceleration tool. They don't see marketing as a cost. They see it as a spotlight that magnetizes capital. They don't fear losing money. They fear losing momentum. Because momentum, not money, is what builds empires. And Machiavelli understood that empires are psychological before they are physical. Before any palace is built, a mindset is built. And that mindset is, money moves for me because I move with confidence. But most people reverse this. They wait for confidence before they move. They wait for proof before they invest. They wait for guarantees before they take risks. That's why they stay broke. Machiavelli would shake his head and say, the coward's logic is poverty's armor. You protect yourself so much that you never conquer anything. You play defense your entire life, and then you wonder why no one fears you. But there's something darker beneath this fear: guilt. Society teaches you that wanting more is greedy, that spending for growth is vanity, that ambition is arrogance. But Machiavelli saw through that illusion. He knew those lies were invented by the weak to keep the strong asleep. He would say, if your ambition threatens others, you are walking the right path. Because the goal of those beneath you is not your success, it's your obedience. They want you to stay predictable, limited, and financially harmless. When you start spending on yourself, truly spending, you break that obedience. You become dangerous because every dollar you invest into your mind, your craft, or your empire expands your independence. And independence is what tyrants fear most. That's why Machiavelli believed the art of wealth was not about accumulation, but about domination. He understood that money was a weapon to buy power, and power in turn multiplies money. It's a loop. But most people break that loop by hesitating at the first step. They get money, then freeze. They hold it. They think, what if I lose it? And in that hesitation, they already lost. Not the money, but the opportunity it could have created. Machiavelli's student would think differently. He'd ask, how can this dollar buy me 10 more? How can this move buy me influence, respect, or control? He doesn't just spend, he directs. He plays chess while others count coins. And here's where the strategy deepens. Spending strategically is not about buying more. It's about positioning yourself where money flows easily. You spend to build an identity that attracts opportunities. You invest in visibility because unseen value is worthless. And you cultivate status because status bends the rules in your favor. Machiavelli once said, men judge more by the eye than by the hand, for all can see, but few can feel. He meant perception rules the world. And if perception rules, then your appearance, your presence, your projection are worth investing in, because they are your invisible currency. You might think you need more money to start, but Machiavelli would disagree. He'd tell you that strategy multiplies what you already have. You don't need more resources, you need more resourcefulness. The poor think, when I have more, I'll invest. The rich think, I must invest now to have more. One waits for proof, the other creates it. That's why one stays trapped while the other ascends. Machiavelli's philosophy was built on timing. He believed that fortune favors those who strike while others hesitate. When others are saving, the strategist is buying assets. When others are hoarding, he's acquiring power, because he knows hesitation kills opportunity faster than failure ever could. So if you feel stuck right now, if you feel like you can't move forward financially, it's not a lack of money that's stopping you. It's a lack of movement. You're waiting for a perfect moment that will never come. The wealthy move first, think later, adjust fast. The poor think first, doubt more, and never act. That's why Machiavelli would whisper, if you must err, err on the side of boldness. Because boldness, even when imperfect, commands respect. And respect always precedes reward. Let me ask you something. What if your next breakthrough requires you to spend the very money you're afraid to lose? What if that money is not meant to protect you, but to transform you? Every great transformation requires a sacrifice. And Machiavelli would say, money is the blood you trade for rebirth. When you spend, you bleed temporarily, but that blood nourishes your next level. When you hold it out of fear, you suffocate your own evolution. Understand this. You are not punished for spending. You are punished for spending without purpose. Machiavelli's strategy is not reckless. It's ruthlessly intentional. You don't throw money away. You aim it like an arrow. Every dollar must have a mission, a target, a measurable return. And the return doesn't always have to be financial. It can be psychological, social, or strategic. The confidence gained from investing in yourself is worth more than interest rates. The network gained from a mastermind is worth more than years of solitary effort. The credibility gained from branding is worth more than 1,000 saved dollars. Machiavelli would teach that every powerful person must master symbolic spending, the art of showing the world what to believe about you. Spend strategically, not to impress, but to signal dominance, because the world believes what it sees, not what you feel. Now, before we move to the second part, remember this truth. Every dollar in your pocket is either your servant or your master. If you don't give it a mission, it will enslave you with fear. But if you command it with vision, it will bring you empires. So the next time you hesitate to invest in yourself, ask, am I protecting my money or am I protecting my comfort? Because Machiavelli would tell you, comfort is the silent killer of kings. Now that you understand the principle, that money must move, that hesitation kills opportunity, that bold spending is the gateway to power, it's time to master the execution. Because knowledge alone will not make you rich. Action will. Machiavelli would tell you, fortune is a woman, and she favors the audacious. But audacity is not chaos. It is calculated risk. It is spending not out of impulse, but out of strategic foresight. Every dollar you spend should ask one question. Does this increase my power, my reach, my influence, or my leverage? If yes, then spend. If no, do not touch it. The masses confuse spending with pleasure. The elite spend for multiplication. They buy what grows, what connects, what signals authority. They buy access to mentors, tools, networks, and visibility. And every investment compounds faster than the money they hoard. Let me break this down psychologically. Fear is the enemy of growth. Every time you hesitate to invest, your brain reinforces scarcity. Your identity shrinks, your ambition contracts, your future contracts, and eventually your opportunity disappears. Machiavelli would say, do not wait for certainty. Strike with courage and adjust while moving. The richest men in history were not the most cautious. They were the most adaptable. They deployed capital even when the outcome was uncertain, because movement creates advantage. Think about it. The entrepreneur who spends $5,000 to launch a bold marketing campaign risks failure. The timid saver risks nothing today and nothing ever tomorrow. Guess which one builds empires? Here's the secret. Strategic spending is invisible leverage. Every dollar you put into growth creates a ripple. The connections you gain, the reputation you build, the doors that open. Even your mindset evolves because you've committed to action. Machiavelli understood this intuitively. He saw power not as accumulation, but as motion. Stagnation was weakness, fear was weakness, and wealth was not measured by coins, but by influence. That's why the rich rarely live frugally in public. Their spending is deliberate theater. It tells the world, I am valuable, I am influential, I am unstoppable. And when people believe it, the world responds in kind. Now let's get even more practical. How do you spend strategically, not recklessly? The first rule, invest in yourself before anything else. Your mind is the most valuable asset you own. Every course, book, mentor, or seminar is not a cost. It is capital. The knowledge and skills you acquire will return tenfold. Second rule, invest in perception. Your reputation precedes you. Your appearance, your presence, your aura of competence is currency. Spending to refine it is not vanity. It is psychological warfare. Third rule, invest in networks. Connections are pathways to resources you cannot access alone. A lunch with the right person can create opportunities that years of saving cannot. Machiavelli would remind you, it is not the coin, but the hand that holds it that rules the game. Fourth rule, invest in leverage. Tools, systems, automation, marketing, and teams amplify your influence. One strategic investment can produce outcomes far beyond the sum spent. While others struggle alone, you multiply your impact. Notice the pattern? Strategic spending is always future-oriented. It is designed to produce compounding returns, financial, social, and psychological. And yet most people do the opposite. They buy comfort, they buy distraction, they buy validation, and call it success. Machiavelli would laugh at that approach. He would call it self-imprisonment disguised as prudence. The poor man hoards coins. The wise man deploys them. Here's a crucial psychological insight. Your money mirrors your mindset. If you hoard, you reinforce fear. If you invest boldly, you reinforce confidence. If you spend strategically, you reinforce control. And control is the mother of all wealth. Now let's talk about timing, because strategy is worthless without it. Machiavelli's greatest lesson, fortune is fickle. Opportunities appear for a moment, and those who hesitate are left behind. Money must move fast, decisively, and without apology. Think of it like this. A seed planted in fertile soil grows, but only if it is planted at the right season. A dollar invested in skill, network, or leverage grows, but only if you act before hesitation turns opportunity to dust. Most people wait for perfection. They wait for certainty. They wait for the right moment. And in that waiting, they watch others succeed while they stagnate. Machiavelli would tell you, action is the antidote to fear. When you spend strategically, you confront your doubts directly. Every investment is a test of courage, foresight, and discipline. And with each test, your confidence grows. Now let's address the emotional side. Spending is scary. It triggers loss aversion in your brain. You feel pain imagining what could go wrong. This is natural. But Machiavelli would argue that the fear of inaction is far greater than the fear of risk. Because inaction has a silent cost. Missed deals, missed influence, missed growth, and worst of all, a shrinking sense of self-worth. When you act boldly with money, you send a message to the world and to yourself. You say, I am willing to risk for reward. I am not a victim. I am a creator. That identity, reinforced through strategic spending, compounds faster than any investment account. Machiavelli also understood that control over perception is paramount. Every investment you make communicates to others. Power, intelligence, audacity, and the world responds. Opportunities flow toward those perceived as capable and influential. Those who save timidly, invisible to the world, are ignored. Here's a truth a few admit. Money alone does not make you rich. Influence does, power does, and strategic spending is the engine that converts coins into influence. Let's talk about mistakes, because you will make them. Machiavelli would say, expect failure, spend with purpose, but accept that some investments will not pay off. What matters is velocity, not perfection. Move quickly, learn, adjust, repeat. The wealthy embrace mistakes as tuition for mastery. The poor fear mistakes and end up paying life's tuition instead. Notice the difference? One grows, the other stagnates. Strategic spending also teaches discipline. When every dollar has a mission, you stop wasting energy on trivial desires. You focus only on what multiplies influence, wealth, and power. And that focus alone is a hidden advantage. Now imagine this psychologically. You spend today to grow tomorrow. You invest in influence that multiplies unseen. You risk your comfort to gain leverage. And in doing so, your confidence, power, and wealth all compound simultaneously. This is the Machiavellian loop: bold investment, influence, opportunities, more wealth, more bold investment. It is relentless. It is unforgiving. It is beautiful. And here's the final, most important lesson. Money is a servant. Your ambition is the master. If you spend to serve fear, you remain weak. If you spend to serve ambition, you become unstoppable. Do not misunderstand this. You do not need vast wealth to start. You need clarity, courage, and commitment. A few strategic investments today can create leverage far beyond the coins you hold. Every dollar you invest in growth, visibility, and leverage compounds exponentially, not just in wealth, but in power, reputation, and influence. Machiavelli would remind you, fortune is controlled by those who act with courage, intelligence, and audacity. So take the step, deploy your capital, invest in your mind, your influence, your networks, and your leverage. Do not waste another day protecting what you have. Use it to create what you deserve. And remember, the world respects the bold. History remembers the audacious. The timid are forgotten even if they die with coins in hand. Your next act of strategic spending could be the arrow that pierces your limitations. It could be the signal that opens doors previously locked. It could be the step that transforms your life from stagnation to power. So act. Spend with strategy. Spend with purpose. Spend like Machiavelli would. And as you watch the ripples of influence, opportunity, and wealth unfold, you will understand the man who controls money controls destiny. The man who hesitates controls nothing. Fortune favors the bold, power favors the prepared, and wealth favors those who understand the psychology of spending. Now go ahead, take your first step, invest boldly, command your money, and let it serve your empire, not your fear. If this opened your eyes, comment below your first bold investment step, and don't forget to subscribe. Fortune favors those who act.